The email came in the dark. 2:17 a.m. Her phone buzzed once on the nightstand, a small sound in a quiet room. She didn't move at first, just stared at the cracked ceiling, listening to her son's breath rise and fall beside her. One hand rested lightly on his back, a habit now, like she needed to keep touching life just to believe it was real. After a moment, she reached for the phone. The subject line glowed in the dark like a whisper. "Are you available?" No name. No long explanation, just a few clean lines from a woman in New York. She'd heard about Naomi's company through a friend of a client of a cousin. The way real stories travel. Soft, steady, uninvited. They were expanding, looking for someone to lead a new division. Someone who understood the ground floor, but could see 10 stories up. Naomi read the message 3 times. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She didn't smile. Not yet. She just breathed, slow and full, like someone lighting a candle in a dark room. Her son stirred in his sleep, tiny fingers twitching against her ribs. She looked at him, then back at the message. Did they know who they were writing to? Did they know she used to mop the floor in heels too worn to click? That she'd bled in a shelter bathroom? Whispered promises to a baby no one had wanted but her? She didn't write back. Not yet. Instead, she turned the phone face down, placed it gently beside her son, and closed her eyes. And in that long, tender quiet, she whispered, not to herself, not to the sky, but to the woman she used to be. "You were right to stay. Something's coming." It started small, a second call, then a third, then a proposal in a PDF with careful fonts and language that used to intimidate her. Now she read through it slowly, lips pressed together, eyes steady. She didn't answer right away. She let the words sit, let her body catch up. Sometimes strength means not reacting, just listening. Her team was growing, quietly. No flashy announcements, no startup hype, just women, tired, brilliant, determined, building side by side in rooms no one had handed them. Naomi moved through the days with a calm that wasn't there before, not just survival now. She was steering something. She no longer sat outside glass walls. Now she stood at the center of conference rooms, not to impress, but to shape. People started calling her founder. Investors asked for her vision. Reporters used the word empire. She never said much about that. She still made tea herself, still checked every invoice, still walked the halls at night when the lights were low and the air was quiet. Sometimes she paused by the window, one hand resting on the glass, watching the city below, a tangle of movement and light. And in those long pauses, she would remember the girl who once stood in the rain holding her belly, whispering, "We'll be okay." That girl was still inside her. And every time she faced a new contract, a new office, a new future, she didn't lead with ambition. She led with her. The girl who cleaned floors, the woman who said no to being erased. The building had her name now. But what she was building, that was bigger. It was a quiet Sunday morning, the kind with sunlight stretching slowly across the floor and the soft sound of a spoon tapping gently against the side of a cereal bowl. Naomi stood by the stove, half listening to the kettle hum, half lost in thought. She was barefoot, wrapped in a loose gray sweater. Her hair was still tied in the silk scarf she slept in. Her son sat at the small kitchen table, legs swinging, chewing slowly. 8 now. All limbs and questions and growing silences. Then, between bites, his voice came, soft but clear. "Was Daddy ever nice to you?" The question didn't fall. It landed, right between the sound of the kettle and her heartbeat. She didn't turn around at first. Her hand tightened slightly around the edge of the counter. She looked down at the steam curling from the mug she hadn't poured yet. Her breath caught, then steadied. When she did turn, her face was calm, but her eyes carried weight. She walked over slowly, sat across from him. He was looking at her with that open kind of honesty only children have. Not to hurt, not to judge, just to understand. She reached out and touched his wrist. "No," she said gently. "He wasn't. Not really." He blinked once, then looked down at his cereal. She waited. And then, her voice softer now, deeper. "But you teach me what kindness is, every single day." He didn't say anything right away, just looked up at her. And in that look, something passed between them, an understanding neither of them had words for. He got up, walked over, wrapped his arms around her neck. Naomi closed her eyes. There in the soft golden morning, she didn't think about the past or the question or even the pain. Only this. that sometimes the best answer isn't in what we say, but in who we raise. The building was all glass and shine, the kind where your reflection follows you, even when you're trying not to look. Naomi stepped into the lobby, heels soft against the marble. The front desk greeted her by name now. She nodded, said thank you, not out of habit, but out of memory. Because she remembered what it was like to go unnoticed, she pressed the elevator button. She was there for a panel. Nothing huge. Just a rooftop room, a skyline backdrop, and a few hundred eyes waiting to hear how she'd done the impossible. The elevator chimed. She stepped in. 2 women entered just after her, younger, sharp, blazers cinched tight, phones in hand. Their perfume was expensive, their laughter careful. They looked Naomi over, a glance that flickered, paused, moved on. Not unkind, just assessing. She wore black, clean lines, hair twisted back simply. No designer bag, no nameplate necklace, just stillness. They spoke in quick, clipped voices about growth strategy. One of them said, "I hope the speaker's not another token success story." Naomi didn't turn. She looked at the numbers above the door, calm as a tide. The elevator reached the top floor. A man in a navy suit stood waiting. He smiled as the doors opened. "Miss James," he said, "we're honored you made it. Everyone's upstairs. They've been waiting." The 2 women froze. Naomi stepped forward, just a soft nod to the man, a quiet, "Thank you." And then, without looking back, she walked on, not angry, not smug, just rooted. Because some rooms don't need noise, they just need your presence. There was no slideshow, no buzzwords, no animation flying across the screen, just her, a glass of water, and a quiet room full of people waiting to be impressed. She didn't pace, didn't gesture wildly or raise her voice. She simply stood there, one hand resting lightly on the edge of the podium, the other holding the mic like it was something sacred, like she knew words mattered more when they were measured. "I'm not going to give you numbers first," she began. Her voice was low, steady. "I want to talk about a woman who used to clean floors in buildings just like this one." There was a stillness, not the kind that comes from politeness, but the kind that leans in. She worked nights, listened to meetings through glass walls, taught herself business terms from discarded magazines, raised a child alone, slept 3 hours a night, and still showed up every shift. She let that hang, not for drama, but because silence tells the truth louder than applause ever could. She didn't get a grant, or a mentor, or a safety net. She built what she needed and then gave it to other women. A pause. And that woman is standing in front of you now. Someone at the back of the room exhaled. She continued. No performance, no exaggeration, just her story, her numbers, her impact, her truth. She ended with a simple sentence. "We don't need more founders who look impressive on paper. We need leaders who remember what hunger feels like and still choose to feed others." The room didn't erupt. It didn't need to. Instead, heads nodded, throats tightened, eyes shifted from judgment to respect. And when Naomi stepped off the stage, she didn't look back. Because she hadn't come to be seen. She had come to say something, and they had heard her. The paper was thick. The kind that feels expensive in your hands. It lay flat across the table, clean and heavy. She didn't touch it right away. Just looked at the number printed near the bottom. A number that could have changed her whole life once, back when diapers were a decision and bus fare was a prayer. 8 figures. A buyout. Not a scam, not a bluff, a real offer. Her company, her name, her story. Sold, scaled, absorbed. She sat in her office, the lights dimmed low. Outside, the city blinked with quiet confidence. Her lawyer sat across from her, waiting, pen on the table. Words like generational wealth, security, exit plan, floating gently in the air. She nodded, listened, let them speak. But inside, she was somewhere else. Somewhere with rain against a shelter window. Somewhere on a bathroom floor, holding a baby that hadn't cried yet. Somewhere in a janitor's closet, whispering to herself, just keep going. Her fingers grazed the edge of the paper. She closed her eyes. She could say yes. Buy comfort, buy time, buy space. But the cost? Her name, her mission, her hands off the wheel. She looked up, gently pushed the paper back across the table. "I'm not finished," she said quietly. The lawyer blinked. She smiled, not defiant, not proud, just clear. "I didn't build this to sell it. I built it because no one built it for me. And it's not done yet." No applause, no gasp, just the sound of her chair sliding back as she stood. Because sometimes walking away from the biggest offer is the loudest yes you'll ever speak. It was late, not working late, just quiet late. Her son was asleep. The apartment was clean. Her tea had gone cold. Naomi sat on the edge of the couch, one arm resting on the windowsill, looking out at the city that used to scare her. Then her phone lit up, just a soft glow in the dark, no sound, just vibration. She didn't recognize the number, but something, somewhere in her body recognized the weight behind it. She picked it up, paused, then answered. Naomi? His voice, older now. Thinner, as if time had scraped the edges of it. She didn't speak. I saw the article, he said. The feature, your company, all of it. I had no idea. Still, she said nothing. There was a long silence on the line. The kind that used to scare her. The kind she used to fill, always apologizing, always softening the blow for someone else's absence. But not now. He cleared his throat. I guess I wanted to say I'm sorry. She closed her eyes. Not from pain, from peace. Because she finally knew. She didn't need his apology. She had already healed. She looked out the window, where she used to watch buses she couldn't afford and couples she envied. Then she said, simply, now you do, and ended the call. No anger, no lecture, no need to explain, just truth. And in that stillness, in the soft glow of her son's nightlight and the hum of her own quiet power, she whispered, not for him, not for anyone else, but for herself. You don't get to be part of the story you walked away from. They came with lights and quiet voices. Young, polite, careful. The kind of people who ask for permission with their eyes before they even open their mouths. She wasn't sure about it at first. She didn't like the sound of spotlight. Didn't trust stories that got trimmed to fit someone else's idea of triumph. But then one of them, a woman with dark eyes and long braids, said, we don't want to make you a hero. We want to show the woman who kept walking when no one watched. That made her pause. So she said yes. The camera followed her through her day. But it wasn't the boardrooms or the meetings that mattered. It was the pauses. The way she ran her hand along the hallway wall she used to clean. The way she picked up her son's drawing from her office desk like it was treasure. The way she spoke the names of the women on her team with reverence, as if each one had been rescued from a fire and was now lighting their own torch. They asked her where it started. She said, a mop, a baby, and a whisper. They asked her what kept her going. She said, fear, and then something louder than fear. They asked her what success felt like. She looked at her son, who was playing on the floor with two of the interns, and said softly, it feels like breathing again, but deeper. They kept the camera rolling, but no one spoke, not for a while. Because sometimes the most powerful part of the story is the silence that finally gets to rest. There was no champagne, no cameras, no balloons or fancy speeches, just the rooftop, a breeze that smelled like night jasmine, and the sound of her son's feet padding across the concrete in socks that didn't match. He was 10 now, still small in some ways, but taller when he smiled. They sat together on a plaid blanket, a little lopsided, a little worn. She had picked up 2 slices of cake on the way home. Lemon for her, chocolate for him. Why are we up here? He asked, licking frosting from his thumb. She didn't answer right away. She just looked out at the city. The lights didn't look so tall anymore. Not since she'd built something that stood steady without shining. We closed our biggest deal today, she said softly. He looked up. Does that mean we're rich? She laughed, not loud but full. I think it means we're free. He didn't fully understand. But he leaned against her anyway. Will you still take me to school tomorrow? She kissed his temple, always. The wind tugged gently at the edges of the blanket. Far below, cars moved like blood through the city's veins. And up here, above it all, she felt no rush, no hunger, no doubt. Just this, the quiet weight of joy that doesn't need an audience. Her son yawned, head falling against her shoulder. And as she pulled the blanket tighter around them, Naomi looked out at the stars and thought, I don't need more. I just need to hold this long enough to know it's real. She didn't advertise it. There were no flyers, no sponsorships, just a quiet room above a coffee shop on Tuesdays. 12 folding chairs, a whiteboard that squeaked, and a kettle that never quite worked right. The first girl came trembling. Eyes down, shoulders high, hands that kept picking at the hem of her sleeves like the fabric might hide her. Naomi offered her tea, sat beside her, didn't ask too much, just listened. And when the girl said, almost in a whisper, I don't know where to start. Naomi smiled softly and replied, right there. That's your start. The room began to grow. One girl brought a cousin, another brought her friend from the shelter. They showed up with children, with notebooks, with fear, and Naomi met every single one where they were. She didn't hand them success. She handed them mirrors and told them to look until they saw someone worth building with. Sometimes they cried. Sometimes they left and didn't come back for months. But the door stayed open. Always. Because Naomi remembered what it felt like to knock on 100 doors and hear nothing. She knew the ache of starting with no map, and she also knew the way one voice, steady and quiet, can change the entire direction of someone's life. She didn't want to be a hero. She just didn't want the next girl to feel as alone as she once did. The auditorium was warm, buzzing with soft chatter, programs rustling, the occasional squeak of a folding chair. Naomi sat near the back, not because she didn't belong, but because she liked to watch from the edge. She had worn a navy dress, simple, clean. Her hair pinned back the way her son liked. "So I can see your eyes when I talk," he always said. He walked onto the stage, tall now, broad in the shoulders, steady in the legs, but still hers. He adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat once, and then his voice. "Most people thank their parents at the end of their speech, but I want to start with mine." Naomi's breath caught. He looked out at the crowd, but his eyes found hers, fast, like he needed to anchor himself before sailing. "I don't remember everything we went through, but I remember this. My mother never looked afraid, even when I know she was." Silence. Even the fidgeting stopped. She built a company from nothing. But more than that, she built me, and I don't know how she did both, but she did. And because of her, I know what strength looks like. It looks like quiet. It looks like showing up. It looks like her. A tear slid down Naomi's cheek. She didn't wipe it away, because some tears aren't grief, some tears are arrival. He finished. Simple. Clear. And when he stepped off the stage, he didn't go to the principal or his friends. He came straight to her, wrapped both arms around her middle, his voice low in her ear. "I made it, Mama." And all she could say, all she needed to say, was, "We did." Her office was different now. Bigger, yes, windows that stretched high, a desk carved from walnut, the skyline wrapping around her like a crown. But it wasn't the view that made her pause. It was the feeling, the hush, that deep, calm quiet she never thought she'd earn. She stood by the glass, her hand resting lightly on the windowsill. The hum of the city below was soft, distant, like it respected where she was now. A soft knock came at the door. "Miss James?" a voice said, young, clear. "It's the Paris team. They're ready." She turned slowly. Her heels didn't click, they glided. She walked past framed letters from girls she'd mentored. Photos of her son at each age, a list of names, not clients, not donors, but women, her team, her foundation. She reached for the door handle, paused, not because she was afraid, not because she doubted, but because for the first time, she wasn't chasing anything. Not survival, not approval, not even success. She was in it, fully, freely, quietly powerful. She opened the door, and just before she stepped out, she looked back one last time, at the light on the desk, at the chair she used to dream about, at the space she'd made from nothing but grit and grace. Then, under her breath, barely a whisper, she smiled and said, "Let's begin again." The end.